Okay, welcome to Service Pending Operator Weekly Call. Today is September 1st, 2022. So I have added one item for discussion, and if anybody else has something else to add, please add. And we can also do the issue trashing. I think Andy would be looking at that one, right? Okay, so I
Yes.
think I can. Yeah, okay, so let me start with my topic that I added. So there was an issue that I created sometimes while looking at the ACK integration with the service pending operator. Uh, I also made an attempt to see if we can use that field export mechanism they provided to use
Right.
the direct secret reference, and I stumbled upon the problem like they don't have a way to specify the explicitly the what is the name of the key, and I recreated the issue and I got a response that it's a good idea, and even the one of the core developer agreed to this proposal. And looks at just looked at the implementation, I found that it's not that very hard to implement, and based on their suggestion and making a few lines, but test for well, there are a few test changes which is bit not that complex, but that didn't took much time. So I implemented that feature and I got quite a lot of reviews, and finally that got merged. And so that means now it is possible to use the field export, and so that means we can use the direct secret reference. So and then I started writing some draft content, hoping that it could turn to a blog post if required. So the
So
usages,
in in the article, are you describing the problem and why is useful,
um,
or is that something that in you had an
no,
issue with
this
that?
is this is not really in a good shape. I just put all my YAML files so that I can convert into format. So there is, I think it's a good idea to mention the problem. Yeah, I agree that. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, so their solution basically with field export is a very generic solution using which we can export any attribute in their CRDs, and then so so let's take a quick look at the example here itself. For example, uh, see, this is one field export which is basically looking for a secret, sorry, looking for a resource called this DB instance, and then this is the API group, and this is the name of the resource. Within that name resource, this is a path from where they need to this is the value that need to be exported, and in there it is available in the status endpoint address. But whereas in my case, I want that value to be as host, that is nothing but the host address and where it's given address. So I want to export this into a secret. That's what mentioned here. So this is the entry that I contributed. So adding a explicit way. So if the key is not there, what happens is that by default it becomes the constructor name with this namespace plus the name of this field, I believe. Yeah, that's how it was.
Something
So
weird, basically.
yeah, they're just a default value, and which can be used in the to project, by changing it. Yeah. Anyway, so like that, you can have any number of field export. That means there is no constraint or limit. All can point to a one secret or more than one secret, or even config map, and that's how the field export works. So this is a very flexible generic solution, and that way we'll get a secret resource. So in my case, I originally created a secret object like this with some additional fields like type and provider. So the password is also used by this DB instance. In DB instance resource, there is a attribute to specify the pass from where to read the password. So basically, that's an input for the DB instance itself. So I use the same secret resource as the target to for the field export. So basically, the secret export, that means even if I don't use some, let's say, not using a SPO or anything like that, I can actually mount this in volume into a directory with the same folder structure. and I hope it's going to work. That way I know exactly which is the secret that I need to mount right ahead of time. So it's not a dynamic secret, rather it's a fixed secret. Yeah. So, but in this case, I use the um, yeah, typical deployment, which is a Spring Pet Clinic application, and then yeah, using the service binding with the label selector, and that way, yeah, this is the label that is mentioned here in this deployment. So that's going to work. I mean, service binding operator or any other spec compliant operator should work. And I also mentioned, yeah, it is not really related, but I also mentioned how to build this Spring Pet Clinic container image also here in case if that's required here. Yeah. Any questions, anything?
Yeah. So each field can go to a different secret. Is that what I'm seeing?
Each field can go to, yeah,
Because you
that's
have
possible. Yeah, technically,
you
yeah,
have
technically you
one.
can
Yeah.
have any number of secrets. Yeah, but in this normally for service binding operator, we need everything goes to the single secret. Yes.
Okay, but technically that feature allows them to put in
Yeah,
whatever
yeah,
many secrets they want, right?
yeah.
And even
Secret or
config map,
config.
right?
Yeah, config
Okay.
map also. That could be a
Okay.
target. The two field could be here. The kind could be a secret or config map.
Now,
Yeah,
since this is
I get.
already doing the mapping, can we make this a provision service then? But because it doesn't match, right? Because
No,
since
no,
it could
this
be
is not
different
creating
secret and
conflict.
different config map, so it's gonna be weird.
Field expert itself is not doing any, it's just a kind of action. It doesn't, this resource itself is not, no, cannot be used because as you can see, there are any number of, n number of field exports, right? All pointing to a common secret object.
Right.
So this secret is the something that it's an input. So the field expert doesn't create a secret. It actually update your in whatever secret that you're providing.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it could output a status with a specific secret. The problem is which secret is gonna select. There could be many.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
So
field
there's no
expert, yeah,
standard.
yeah.
I mean, it could at the end because it's a controller, right? Controller that's
Yeah,
doing something, is taking this, is creating something.
yeah,
It's not creating,
but
but is adding to it, right?
yeah, but see, when you're giving the service in the service binding operator, so you can just give that secret itself, right? You don't, and that secret is going to be fixed because that's this name is going to be well defined, because and this is just your input for your field export, right? And so this is not going to be dynamic value. So this is going to be fixed one. So that way it is possible to give this to service binding. And whereas when it comes to workload, you can use this the selector match labels. So that way, it can project to any application as
But
long
what
as
if you
it's
have
matched.
different secrets? Why would you put in the spec then? You put a list.
Uh, for a secret for example, this the RDS. So only one secret is yeah, sufficient, right? And if it's a different RDS
Sufficient
instance,
sufficient is one thing, and then what the thing allows is another thing, right?
yeah, you can have any
So
number of secret as long as it points to different RDS instance. So that means field export is doesn't restrict that. You can point this. Let's say you can create one more DB instance with a different name, and then you can have other field export which is creating a separate secret, and that secret can be used by another, uh, service binding.
ho- uh, I think we're not answering the same. We're not talking about the same thing. So I'm saying for the same specific RDS, for one RDS,
Yeah,
the multiple fields, right? Can each field go to a different type? So like a one field goes to config and another field goes to a secret, or
yeah.
can the fields go to different secrets? If
It
that's the
can
case,
technically, it can go
then okay,
technically.
then
Yeah, it
yeah.
can go.
Then we have no way to have a consistent. This is the secret that's gonna be the one I'm gonna bind to. It might be many secrets, you know, because that's what the feature allows. I need to support it, right? Now we can say, okay, if the user selects only one secret, then we can use that, right?
Yeah, those who are creating the DB instance, they need to create this field exports, corresponding field export and the secret, and that's all should happen at one time, and that way it can be used. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it requires an action from the user to be consistent with, single secret type of thing. So, all right. I was just trying to brainstorm to see if we can make this provision service. That would save a lot of time, right? Because
Yeah,
that seems
this
to be
is,
the way they do in
yeah, the field export
finding.
itself doesn't look, because this completely they flip the idea, right? Here we don't, this field export is just a kind of tool or function. Yeah, it's something like a function,
Okay.
and but doesn't, that itself, resource itself doesn't have any state that's usable, which
Okay.
is state is external to that field export resource.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
So
if, what if they point you to this? Let's say you're doing your provision service work, right? You're doing your proposal, and they say, no, we do this way. Is there any way that we can propose something for the field export to then be a provision service? Start thinking about that, I think, right?
no, see, the idea itself is very different, right? The field export is just concerned about as individual fields and pointing to secret. So I don't see a way that we can make field exports as a provision service, because like I
Why
said, this
not?
is just a function, and we don't have a what I
They
say.
have a controller. They have a controller. They're doing
Yeah,
mapping. They know how to read from CRs, right?
and this only dealing with one field at a time, right? You cannot have more than one field defined in a single field export. So
Oh, so you're
that
gonna have
means,
a lot of. Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
So you
see,
gotta have many field exports
yeah,
for.
that's how it works. So that means, see, this is one resource. I kept it in a single file, but ideally, these are distinct field exports.
Oh, you're correct. Yeah,
I
multiple
think my
field
conclusion
exports.
out of this is if you're going to want to use this with service bindings, you're going to need to use something like
Consolidator or something, right?
yeah, or I was going to say you're basically forced to use direct secret projection.
Yeah,
I
direct
mean, we
secret.
could do
It
we
is
could do
called
that
direct
today.
secret reference. Yeah, that
We
is the
could do
word.
that today. Yeah.
And as per the spec, it is called direct secret reference, and that's what we are using in this configuration. Right. So yeah, so that means with this they can configure, and there is no constraint regarding application or DevOps or anything. Any field, anything can be taken and projected into any application as long as there is a field export to that. So this, I can see, it's very generic and flexible solution. Yeah.
Why would they do it like that, where there could be a different secret for everything? I wonder. It's already complicated enough that we have one secret per service. Imagine having one secret per field per service. That's gonna be crazy. So it complicates things on the operator side. I mean, service binding is gonna solve that problem for them.
Yeah, the field export, by the way, it's a generic API controller, and it applicable for all the controllers, like not only RDS. It can be used with the
Right.
S3,
Good.
and they, but it bundles with all these controllers. So their release processes, since it's whether they have separate controller for each one of the services. They did it mainly for the reduce the surface area of what they call that. Yeah, they don't want too many permissions given to a controller. So that was the decision to go for separate controllers for each service. So,
Right.
but the field expertise will be available for everywhere. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This need, but this PR this doesn't work right now, because this, even though this PR is merged, they need to make a release of that runtime package, and then that should be used in this RDS controller. Then only this feature is going to work. Okay. So that means I'm not going to publish it until those things are ready, and let's see. Okay, I think we have just 10 more minutes now. Andy, you want to?
Yes. I'll go through triaging for today. Yes, I do want to share my screen. Thank you very much. All right, you guys can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Make the font bigger.
Okay, 150% is probably good enough. Can I just move that out of the way? No, that's a shame. So we haven't had any new issues get filed here this week, so that's good, I guess. But there are a couple of issues I did want to bring up in terms of maybe we can resolve them and close them. First off, this one.
That I
It looks
think
like-
Sruti's blog is not yet published, right, Shruti?
Sorry, which blog?
We thought we'll keep this.
Yeah, the monk. It is not published.
and-
It is on the Edgar's space.
Should we
The
close it
evidence.
now? It's right away, or
Wait, you saying it is published or is not published?
No, not
It
not
is
yet
not
published.
published.
Okay. What's left to do, I guess, then? In terms of the publishing process.
I think it is with the editor's phase. Actually, they split the document into two. So part one, it has crossed the editor's phase and it has moved to the next phase. Part two is right now with the editor's phase and it still has to go through a process. So I think it will take some time.
Okay. Then in that case, I think until we see publish, this one can remain unchanged. Yes, that was kind of my question on that one.
I want to discuss about support the stream C. That is the third last. Yeah, actually, that is
Yes.
also mostly done. I was going through that issue that she pointed out. That's in our Jira, but that's a public issue, like visible. And they have that's an Epic, I guess. And there is already that implementation, everything is ready. So even there is a new latest PR with that deployment files. No, okay, this is not fully visible without logging in, I guess. Anyway, so I think this is mostly available, so we could actually, consider this is almost done from our perspective, because STEM3 is there, and we
Okay.
don't have much things to do. Also, it was mainly we kept it for tracking purpose, and that implementation, whatever they're given, is ready, right?
Okay.
Can you
That
go
I
to the
was not
second link?
aware.
No, that GitHub. Can you go to that link which I pasted? That no, not that one below. GitHub.
This one.
I think so. Yeah, that's the one. So that's implementation, and I think this implementation is okay. I don't understand this. It's mostly Java, but my understanding of this implementation is complete, and there is a latest PR which basically you go to the PRs, go to the pull request.
Requests.
Yeah, so that pull request basically adding the deployment also. So that means you can now, until now it was only able to install it manually, but they're even discussing about Hemchart, but Hemchart is not a priority, I guess. There will be a bunch of YAML files which can be applied to create the deployment of this operator. So I would say we can say that this is
I feel like this is almost safe to close.
yeah.
Yeah. Unless anyone has any issues, I think it's good. They could always reopen, right? I don't say for now or
Oh, okay. There is just one more thing. This is talking about the upstream stream C operator.
Right.
We also have support for Kafka by other in the downstream also, right? If I remember correctly, that is a different one.
That is managed Kafka.
Yeah. Manage Kafka. Basically, this streams is the same thing, Kafka.
They are no,
Right?
not exactly the same. No, they both are different. I think Kate works on Strimzy side. Initially, she was working on Kafka, but those two things are different.
No, correct me. Streams is an operator to deploy the Kafka.
No, to deploy Kafka, I think they have RHO. I mean, to interact with Kafka, they have RHOS. That is the operator which they are
Okay.
using. Streamstream is, I think, completely different. It doesn't. I mean, the managed Kafka which we are using, SBO and that Kafka Streamstream doesn't come in between over there anywhere.
So streams is operator to enable Kafka deployment, right?
Something of that sort, yes. But the
This is
managed
CNC.
Kafka.
Yeah, in website I can see Kafka on a Kubernetes in a few minutes. Streamsy provides a way to run Apache Kafka cluster on Kubernetes in various
Yeah, the
deployment
managed
contexts. So,
Kafka which we have and which we are using initially, that is different from the Streamzy.
yeah, that is
which, they are
different. But this
yeah.
also about a Kafka ultimately,
Yes,
this is about
yes.
installing
Yes.
a Kafka in a typical
Like
Kubernetes
making a
cluster.
Kafka for yourself, yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
An upstream project. It looks like it's a CNCF project. Support from Red Hat and many other organizations.
Sorry, just realized I was on mute. Unless there's any further discussion on Streamzy, I think we're good on that particular issue. I think the only other thing that I wanted to bring up for today was this one. For two reasons. One, Igor's assigned, although he hasn't really been contributing to this project for quite a while, so I think it's safe to unassign him.
Yeah.
And second, is this something we want, or is this something that should probably be filed under the 2.0 deprecate CoreOS service bindings?
Okay, in 2.0, are we going to keep the CoreOS API?
This is something I'm not entirely clear on. Is this something we're going to support but mark as deprecated? Is this something we're going to emulate? Is this something we're just going to drop entirely and rely on the spec?
Yeah. So
I
this is
don't
about,
think we have an entirely clear plan for that.
okay,
So the
yeah, this is
core,
only
the core,
concerned of-
the core
so-
API allows for this today. I don't know.
No. The spec API doesn't allow.
No, the spec API doesn't, but the core
It's,
Yeah, we
it's
can have.
implementation allows for that.
Yeah, you can
it's
have any number
emulatable
of.
by the spec, but it requires more effort. You have to make multiple service bindings to do this. One for each service you have.
But that's the understanding, right? So that's what needs to happen. So I don't understand the issue though. Drop support. I mean that implies that it's supported today, right?
Yes,
So we can
because in CoreOS bindings we can do this because that's
Yeah.
that's
With a
what we can
single
do.
object. With a single object.
Yes, with a single service binding, we can drop, or we can bind multiple services to multiple workloads.
Okay.
So,
I think that there need to be
I
a
don't think- I
terminology
don't think we can-
clarification. When we
Go
say
ahead.
the service, actually it is not really service. It's actually Kubernetes resources like secret or CR. That's what that means.
Yeah. Yes. Or binding information provider, I guess, if you want to be accurate. Paul, you had something to say?
Yeah, I don't think we support N service, in terms of the in the terminology of the service binding that we have,
Yes.
right? One side is service and the other one is application or workload, right? Right now, I don't think in the CoreOS we can bind N services to M workloads. We can bind one service to M workloads, I think. I'm not sure
That was
exactly.
my understanding too. So
Yeah,
I
that's
know
what the
at the very
terminology
least we
problem.
can do.
We just know. Yeah, that is a confusion because of the word services. It's actually Kubernetes resources, right?
Yeah, this we originally, I think at that time, it's more than a year ago. Our binding had sort of like services and also
applications, right? And you can specify multiple resources under that sections.
But
Right
that's not the
now,
case
supported.
right now.
it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
the
it
case.
is.
Yeah.
It is. I know we can have n number of services right now in the CoreOS API. It is supported.
It is.
So that means that I can have multiple provision service references. That's a
Yeah, yeah.
resource. A provision
yeah.
service is a resource, right? So
Yeah.
so when you say resources that we identify as services, like a secret, like a provision provision a provision service,
The CR,
CRD,
the CR.
the annotated CRs, right? All those things could be referenced multiple times. If that's the case, we do support multiple service binding, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So okay, so my take on this just quickly will be that's the support we had for CoreOS. We are in the process of deprecating CoreOS, so eventually it won't be there.
Yes.
So
This is
why spend time on deprecating something within something is going to be deprecated? You know. So
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yes. I think my conclusion is this is something that isn't explicitly supported by the spec, but we can't emulate it with what we have today. We just have to make a bunch of service bindings in lieu of just one service binding. And so I don't think we're losing any particular functionality here by saying this is something we're going to drop.
Anyways, right now, does the issue make sense to keep it? I mean, can we say we're not planning to drop a feature within the API? We're planning to drop the whole API. You know,
Yes.
but it's not going to happen right now.
Yes.
Right? So I would just put a comment like that and say, hey, maybe we close it when we drop the API, or we close it now, saying, this is not, it doesn't apply, right? Because we're gonna leave it until we drop the API. So there's no action that we need to take on this. So it's up to us.
I think this really should just be moved into the drop or the 2.0 meta tracking issue, if we had one.
Who opened this?
This was Jasper.
I think we can close this. Let's talk to Jasper. I think we can close this, and then we open a new one that says we're dropping the API. Which is
So
generic.
You can close this one in favor of the other one, right?
Something like that.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
And I think my ruling on this will be until we get that issue made, the 2.0 deprecation kind of tracking issue. Leave this open for now.
Okay. Make a comment.
Once that gets made, we can close this and say this will be tracked on that issue, on the 2.0 deprecation issue. Because we do need to start telling downstream users that, hey, this is kind of what's going to happen when 2.0 happens. It's not going to be for a while, but this is what we're planning.
And we should discourage people from using that feature. If eventually they're gonna go into the new spec, we should start discouraging that. So having a comment will be useful, right?
Yes. And with that, I think we're out of time.
All right. Take care. Let's
Okay.
go to the next one.
Bye.